and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Do you feel as if you don't belong? Do you know you were meant for something more? Well, you were. Knowledge of who you are and where you really are from is within your reach.
Okay, I think we're live. Aloha and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos on Revolution Radio. And I am your host, Janet Carolesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha,
and Dr.
Alex
Sasha
Lesson, the
as they search for the answers
Thomas
as
Becker,
they open
our
up
guests are
the
Mark
Stargate
Micloskey
to the
and Russell
cosmos.
Brinegar. I just lost where I was. Okay, so we're going to talk about a lot of amazing things. We're going to start with a review of this book called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. And so we're going to look at things like what type of person should be a world leader, why is there no testing to be president. Go to what's my site called? aquarianradio.com, and I have a very long page today with lots of information about what we're going to talk about. There's a description of this book, but there tends to be these books coming out lately. They're meant to grab the link for, like, The Joys of Psychopath Hypocrisy by Greg Caton. Why criminality is essential to effective modern government, and how democracies die. And we're looking at what does it take to become a leader of humanity, and should we just be, putting anybody in there? Should there be some kind of qualifications? I mean, you can't get a job unless you have a resume and you pass an interview. So is this voting system for people really the right way to leaders of this world? Okay, so Dr. Sasha, you're there. What would you like to say about
today's subject? Here. Yeah, what I would like to say is it's very interesting, I think, to look at the view of the spoiler. And you can look at things like, for example, people can say, well, what if everything is part of a larger picture? What does it mean to have monsters like Hitler? What it does is it shows us the challenge. It shows us what we have to overcome, the parts of ourselves that we don't own, and so they get projected out into other people. And so Trump represents our shadow. The shadow, even if you're not aware of it, the conditioning and the prejudices of our society. And what we've got here today is two of the smartest guys I know to help us look at this phenomenon.
So, Mark, I would like you to come on and just, we're doing a sound check, and just kind of address this. And then we're going to bring in Russell, who read the book. So he's going to lead this discussion tonight and give us the background. But, Mark, check in. How you doing, Mark, and what do you think about tonight's topic?
Well, I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, Trump, to me, is not as dangerous as other people believe him to be, because I don't think he's really in control as the public thinks he is. His antics are Carney-esque. He's a showman with TV background. He gets on the stage and he'll wave his hands around, and he'll try to cause some stir up some excitement in his base. But as far as true policy, I think he's still a puppet. And no matter how insane or dumb or whatever he really is, I don't think he has full control of, we'll call it the button that, some may fear.
Oh, that's interesting. There was an article about the button. He has the button in his office or something, and he alludes to it sometimes. One of the books recently, one of the tell-all books, says he's got this box.
I'm not sure he's trusted with the codes.
Well, maybe he thinks he does it. He does. I don't know. So that's an idea. That would be funny. Here it is, boss. Here's the button. Press it anytime you want. It's not really a button.
He's like a child with a fake button.
Yeah, the fake button. Okay. Well, thanks for checking in. We're gonna pass the virtual talking stick to Russell Brinegar, who read this book, and we're real excited. I didn't get it yet. I was waiting for the revision, which I think is coming out in another couple weeks before I ordered it. But go ahead, Russell. Tell us what this is about.
Well, this is a group of 27 psychologists and mental health experts that wrote this book in the face of the American Psychological Association policy that basically says you're not supposed to give a public opinion on a public persona or a politician unless he's your own patient and you've done the proper evaluation and everything. And the book is very informative because it talks about the 1964 Goldwater Rule, where this came out. Apparently a psychologist gave an opinion to a magazine when Goldwater was running, and Goldwater sued him and got $75,000, which is the equivalent of quite a bit of money today. So when that happened, it really clammed up the mental health professions from giving their opinion. And then several years later, in 1969, there was another ruling called the Tarasoff Ruling, and that was the opposite. A psychologist failed to give a warning in a domestic case that was dangerous, and by doing so, this person actually killed their spouse. So they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. So they're very careful in the book to say we're not giving a diagnosis. All we're doing is pointing out certain personality disorder characteristics, certain things that are said in the DSM-5. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the latest version, and then kind of let the reader decide. But I was really impressed with the candidness of these mental health professions, and most of them say that the exception to the Goldwater Rule is if they feel like at least one or more person is at danger. And in the case of Donald Trump, because of several clusters of personality traits that he displays, which makes him a particular dangerous president, they felt like they were justified in giving out a public warning because not only does he have the ability to harm one person if he's cornered or pressured and he acts impulsively, which seems to be his MO, he can extinct all life on the planet. And one of the things that they explained is when a president gives the order to fire nuclear weapons, the Secretary of Defense cannot veto it. The only job of the Secretary of Defense, according to this book anyway, is to make sure it's an authentic call from the President of the United States. And if it's an authentic order, then they have to follow through on it. And personally, I find that very frightening because, as you were talking about before, it's like all the qualifications for what somebody, in my mind anyway, should have to possess to be a president of 300 million people and a major world leader in the volatile world stage, the way the world is right now. You need to have certain normal characteristics, good judgment, a fairly good IQ, a very good working knowledge of world events and the complexities of various situations that the United States has gotten itself into. And he's sort of blank on that. It's like our presidency has become a popularity contest where somebody like Oprah Winfrey or Kanye West that everybody likes can become president. And this has drawn, the presidency of Donald Trump has drawn attention to this from workers within the mental health professions because according to the diagnostic manuals, he does display, certain clusters of personality traits that are potentially volatile. And for example, they go into the difference between narcissism, which we all have to a certain degree. I mean, we all like to feel like we're special. We like compliments. We look at ourselves in the mirror and prompt. But there's a difference between normal narcissism and malignant narcissism. And this is where, whatever you think in your mind is reality, and that's what you state. And when facts are brought to you that are contrary to that, those are automatically rejected in lieu of what you thought because you have the greatest mind in the world and what you think has to be true. And another one is histrionic personality disorder. They give several characteristics of that. And there's something called the Zimbardo Time Perception Inventory. And a lot of a person's behavior has to do with how they view their successes in the past. If you tend to, everything you touch turns to gold, you're going to be overconfident that all your decisions, lead to good things and have a good view of the future. And there's a condition that both Bill Clinton and Trump seem to express, which is extreme present hedonism, which is just acting on impulse because you trust your own brain because everything always works out good. And I know best, and I've got the best brain on the planet. And so everything I say goes. And somebody who has various clusters of personality traits that are discussed in this 320-page book here, I'm about 4/5 of the way through it, if cornered, could present a global threat of annihilation. So I think some serious reconstruction needs to be done on how we elect presidents, who can qualify. Actually, I'd like to see it done like The Voice, where it's all anonymous and people pass IQ tests and judgment tests and all kinds of impulse control tests. And whoever scores the highest on these criteria that we all like and love in a leader, the reveal is on Inauguration Day. But that's probably a little bit too novel for most people to accept. And But we've got to get away from the idea that there's something called the plain speak fallacy. If you look in the master list of logical fallacies, there's several fallacies that one would have had to employ to think that Donald Trump is an appropriate candidate for president. And one of them would be the plain speak fallacy, the idea that people want somebody just like them. You know, if I go to a heart surgeon, I want somebody that's had, 8 years, 12 years of school, an internship and all that. I'm not going to go to a plumber, to get a bypass operation. And it's the same way for governance and politics. You should have some years under your belt and experience and be knowledgeable of what we've done in the past and what we're doing now. Listen to our intelligence agencies and what they're saying and be able to make really good, rational decisions. And one of the things that I run into online in my various chats with people is that the media is giving this unusually skewed portrayal. And I would have an issue with that because this is the first president in history that tweets constantly. And he tells us directly through Twitter exactly who he is. Not only does he tell us, he's using an unsecured phone and he's telling Russia and China. And, they're getting really good intel on how this current president thinks. And this could be used against us in a wide variety of ways. And it's not just me saying that. It's, James Brennan and people that are in the intelligence agencies that work for us. And I think there's a big cognitive dissonance going on in the population after 9/11. 9/11 kind of screwed us up as a country because there are suspicions that the surface story isn't the way that it appears, which would imply that there's some internal knowledge of this event or even orchestration of this event. And I think that's where the suspicion of all of our U.S. intelligence agencies started. The NSA, the CIA, you got Operation Gladio, Operation Northwoods, a lot of things you can point to. John Perkins wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And as it turns out, the United States is involved with some nefarious things to get military bases installed in other countries. And we give them big loans that we know they're not going to pay back. And then when they default, according to John Perkins' book anyway, we jam a military base in there. So, and then you've got the whole internet influence. It's almost like people are coming up with their own designer realities. I mean, there's people that think that Obama's in Gitmo right now and there's a clone of him running around and stuff. And it's like there's no way to verify any of this. Not that cloning isn't possible, but there's so much of a barrage. We're on information overload. Our human brains are only built to handle so much information. And just 100 years ago, a normal person could know everything that human beings know. And that isn't the case anymore. Everything's specialized. Everybody has their little niches of information. And, you can't know everything now. And that frustrates us. So everybody's like scrambling online to find this chat room. And then you got people going on 4chan and 8chan from this anonymous Q figure, getting breadcrumbs of information from that and believing every word of it. And it could be some guy working from his grandmother's basement. I mean, you just don't know. So we're in very strange territory right now, unprecedented territory, and I think it's time to fall back and regroup and ask ourselves as individuals, well, what do we really think is an appropriate leader of the free world? I mean, what kind of a person do you want in there? And just maybe make a better decision next time.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go round table here. Let's see. Mark, what would you like to say? What would you like to add to this discussion? And do you have any questions?
Okay,
feedback?
I do agree with a lot of what I heard. When he said that everybody can be president, I'd like to point out that one person who cannot be president is Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie is not initiated into the secret societies. And so that narrows it down. There's a list of who can be president. Okay, Donald Trump, whose uncle, Fred Trump, was the guy that stole Tesla's 16 trunks of personal papers and projects and delivered them to the shadow government, obviously was an insider. will say, I'll assume he's initiated into the secret societies. And if you watch Trump give his hand signals of, you can call it an OK sign, but it's when he does it 3 times, it means 666. Every speech he gives, he represents the outfit. He's one of them, along with Bill Clinton or Hillary or Bush, and he pretended he was an outsider, but he's not an outsider. Okay, so even though he does act in such a silly way and clownish, he does represent the common man, and they do see themselves in him, and they imagine that he's an outsider, although he's really not. Okay, and where this suspicion of the government started, I would say it started with Roswell, the Roswell cover-up. And then it continued with the JFK cover-up. And everyone that saw that didn't think it was a single, alone assassin. And so we have our intelligence being scrutinized by the common man, and more people started to be, truthers, because there is a cover-up. And even if you go on YouTube today, a lot of things that were there are not there. And I notice it's very pro establishment. For example, if 5 years ago, if I wrote president and just put, that for the title, a bunch of negative stuff would come up. Now, if you just put, today I put Trump in, and all positive stuff came up. So there's a lot of support from among the establishment, because YouTube is owned by the corporations. Now, as far as the QAnon, I do have a comment on the QAnon phenomenon. I found this information out, which I don't see it posted in a lot of places. So a lot of people may not have heard it. But there was an alliance coup in America when 3 generals went to Trump and said that we will overthrow you right now, or you will join us. And we are going to overturn this New World Order, the child trafficking, the Illuminati rituals of blood drinking and all that had, infected our governments and our courts and our movies and our, Hollywood. And Trump acquiesced and said, I'm with you. And that's why you see, of course, it can't be verified, but, the boatloads of prisoners being shipped to Gitmo for their secret trials. It may be true if that coup did take place. So is Trump this renegade that he tries to appear to be, or is he being controlled by the alliance? Oh, one more thing I'd like to add. Time Traveler said that Trump does get elected to a second term. He wants a third term, and he gets impeached in the second term. I'd like to throw that in.
Okay, so the Time Traveler, I've been watching all the Time Traveler things, and apparently Trump's uncle. Now, who's John Trump? So you're saying the uncle's name was Fred
The
Trump.
uncle. He's Fred Trump's brother.
The uncle was Fred. What's Donald's father's name? I got
That's John.
Anyway, okay, John is the father, and Fred's the uncle. So Fred was supposed to be at MIT, and he got all the Tesla's documents, but you're saying he stole them. But we have all these different stories.
They siphoned, I think, 4 trunks. There were 20 trunk loads, and only 16 showed up. So whoever he was in with, I'll call it the shadow government, who took that information, and I'm sure they went underground and did, machines, scientific inventions and high tech, what information? We returned it all to, where was he from in Europe? Eastern Europe? They returned some of the trucks.
They wouldn't
Bulgaria or somewhere.
Crazy. That's a crazy story.
But I'm just saying, Trump is related to this Washington insider.
Right.
And the reason he, let me go a little further. The reason he got the nomination was he received a phone call from Bill Clinton that lasted 30 minutes, and then he announced he would run. And to me, in my mind, he agreed to run a losing campaign, because that's exactly what I saw him do. He went out there and acted like a clown and insulted all the Republican candidates, just like Bill and Hillary wanted him to do. But then something happened. It's called the WikiLeaks disclosure of Hillary going to Orgy Island 6+ times. And we know her husband went over 12 times to Orgy Island, if everyone knows what that is, for sex with children on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane, the Lolita Express. So that's what killed Hillary's campaign, and that was a turning point where it was fixed. They even had the headlines in the paper declaring Hillary's victory. The papers are all printed up, but they had to retract them because the fix, I believe, was reversed into a fix for Donald, who was also a shill. But he was supposed to lose, and now he finds himself over his head. So I'm not sure that all the craziness I see him exhibiting is going to do all the harm that people fear, for the fact that I think he's controlled in certain manners.
Okay. Sasha, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I do want to. First of all, the guys down at the beach in Maui say, "Oh yeah, Trump was a front man for the mafia, and they could launder money through him and so forth." And the guys at the beach know a lot. For example, they said Paul McCartney died running in a sports car into a trailer that had a yellow submarine on it. So you can see it's kind of. It's just what the guys at the beach think. But I would like to say some serious things. From my perspective, and I'm a Jungian, an existential Jungian, a balanced human being can have both pride and humility. If you're too far over to either side, too humble, it sucks. No one ever pays attention to. Or if you're too prideful, you drive people away. So a balanced human being can assess the situation they're in, take into consideration their own ecology and those of other people, and make a decision that approaches rationality. So from my perspective, Trump's public persona is way, way over on the pride, vanity side, and lacks sufficient humility. He's still, So that's. And the other thing, Russell, I do think that I liked your idea of a rational selection of a president, blind as to his or her sex or anything like that. However, there's some other principles that I sort of like. One is to have more than one person in charge so they can all check each other, at least 3 people. That's one thing. Ted Becker, who I studied with, a political scientist, talked about having corporation soul, that is offices, filled and in the way that you have, say, one of the 3 people would be one that's been there for a while and knows the role. The other one has been there a long time, and one is selected at random from the population. So you could even get a Trump chump and a highly intellectual person and somebody who's just experienced in there. So I like the idea of having more than one person. I think that our two-party system is just a ridiculous way of cutting, and the Electoral College are just ways of preventing people from voting, and then the state's secretaries of state and the governor are the ones that ultimately decide what they're going to do. Whether they're going to throw out Detroit's votes because there's too many black people in it, or in Florida because they hung poor Chad, So I think that government, I do agree with your assessment. Government is the function of government is theft of resources from people.
Are you done? Okay.
I let people that know a lot more than me talk.
Well, this is just, we all have our own way and wisdom, and anyway, I would like to see our potential candidates pass a bunch of tests. Like, besides just the IQ, there's emotional intelligence tests, and that is, do they have the ability to take everybody's positions into consideration and come up with something that is emotionally intelligent. I'm trying to think of the analogy. I had a person, this is Psych 101, person came to the door, and what do? And this one person came back and said, well, if that was somebody that they hated, they would just grab and kill them, and then they'd figure out how to dispose of the body. So that's a type of what would you do in these situations type of thing. And that comes up with your EQ, your EI, your emotional intelligence, besides your other intelligence. And so how do you react in these situations? Do you press the button and kill everybody just because of your own ego and own agenda, or do you take the whole planet into consideration? How does that affect everybody? And I think that's probably why AI will probably take over eventually, or maybe it already has. That's debatable. We don't know what's going on, but AI might be able to come up with something rational that would really take into consideration all of the citizens of, whatever it's governing, the planet or the individual countries, whatever. Take the needs, and certainly there's a rational way to figure out how to distribute the resources of the planet equally across the board. So we need to take our society into another level, because right now it's not working. And we're facing some real problems here on the planet, and they're just not being addressed. They're getting wrapped up in politics. Meanwhile, the oceans are rising, and the air is becoming toxic. So we've got to get out of this distraction, which goes to what, I forget who said it, Russell or Mark, that who is really running this show? Well, at the highest level, who's the puppeteer pulling the Trump and the Clinton and all that, pulling those strings? There's somebody obviously that's in charge. We're not. We're just all human beings, or maybe we're human alien hybrids. We might be reptilian or Dracos, we might be Anunnaki. There's all these theories out there, but I think that there's somebody that chooses presidents. We've received reports that it doesn't matter what we vote for or who we vote for, that somebody decides it. If you look back over what was happening with Hillary, it's like her droid was malfunctioning, and she was doing all kinds of weird things, and it seems like there was a switcheroo. The powers that be said, well, instead of having Hillary win, we'll have Trump win, But I think he's serving his purpose. He's setting the planet into total chaos. And there is the depopulation bomb and the agenda to wipe us all out. And there we are, fighting amongst ourselves and doing all this political dance. And meanwhile, somebody's going to come in and claim this prime real estate, and the main reason that they like our planet is because of all of its mineral resources. So, a good washing of the planet with floods, and then, make it recede a bit, and they'll come back, and they just walk right in and set up shop. That's the theory. I was talking to George Green and a couple other people. Dan Cooper, and he said, yeah, they've already sold off the human species. This is slave stuff and the sex thing. They've been doing that as a tool all along. You have that movie Eyes Wide Shut, and they use sexual energy because it's very, very powerful, and it can open the stargates and portals to other dimensions. So, that's nothing new. They have them all get involved sexually so they can be, and everything's documented and recorded. So, if you step out of line, that comes out and gets used as blackmail. So, this is the game as usual, but I'm going to pass the talking stick back to somebody else. Okay, back to Russell. Your turn. What do you think about all this?
There seems to be a lot of confusion about what the deep state is, and some people are afraid of what, in their mind, they call the New World Order because they think that George Soros is trying to manipulate everything financially for a global socialism to come about. Okay, that's pretty much people who lean right politically. That's their fear. Global socialism is what the New World Order represents. Okay, people who lean left politically for their own reasons see it as more of a militaristic, totalitarian prison planet, and they point to the fact that we've got 1,000 military bases in 153 countries, and they see the United States as one of the bigger players in the Illuminati or the New World Order or whatever you want to call it. George H.W. Bush was the first one, I think, that went public with that term. But if you read John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman or listen to the testimony of Ronald Bernard before he was murdered, I listened real carefully to what he had to say. And I read body language a lot. And when he broke down and cried and said that they brought in a child and wanted him to participate in a child sacrifice, I believe that sort of thing is going on. There are people on this planet who are trying to achieve a 5-density negative ascension. And he, bottom line, said there's about 8,000 super rich people on this planet that profit from every bullet fired on every side of every conflict. And they're basically child-sacrificing Luciferians who worship this figure that is called Lucifer or Satan. You may not believe in such a thing, but they do, according to Ronald Bernard. So that's who he says is in charge. It's about 8,000 really rich people. And the tools of the cabal or the Illuminati are things like the fossil fuel industry, the World Banks, and the military-industrial complex. Now, we just watched our current president look the other way for a torture, murder, and dismemberment of a man. Why? He didn't want to lose a global arms deals. So if Trump is not the cabal, if he's not the Illuminati, he's using the tools of the cabal to serve their needs. Because as long as we're in the global arms business, and as long as we're in the fossil fuel industry, and as long as we're involved in disaster capitalism and hedge funds that can make millions on a hurricane over here or an earthquake in this country or a tsunami, we're in dire straits. The planet's in jeopardy. And what I would like to see is the dismantling of all of these things to achieve a benign New World Order, something on the order of Michio Kaku's Type 1 civilization, where there are no borders. We voluntarily keep our population to a reasonable figure so that we don't unnecessarily expend all the planet's resources. And we move into this Star Trekian existence where we're reconnected with our galactic neighbors. We love each other. We travel the world freely. And my ideology is centered around things like that. A lot of the astronauts, when they went out into space and they saw the Earth floating in this void, lost a lot of their previous political inclinations. And we said, we're all one people, we're all one planet, we're all one family. And so I don't buy into the concept that there's an illegal human being. I don't want any borders anywhere. And I would like to be able to travel freely around a friendly planet that accepted me and it showed me what they're doing over in this part of the world or that part of the world. I mean, I can see how much better the planet could be if certain things were eliminated, like the nuclear weapons. And speaking of nuclear weapons, the election of a president has real world effects in people's collective psychology. I sort of lean like Dr. Sasha Lesson in a Jungian collective consciousness sort of way. And there is a real thing called the Trump effect that mental health professionals have acknowledged, and they're being flooded with people who are just full of anxiety and fears about the future because of Trump's election. And there's reason for that. Like on November 13th, 2015, Trump said publicly, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. That's a really irresponsible thing to say on a planet that's armed to the teeth in nuclear weapons, or calling a dictator of another country Rocket Man or something. You know, who knows what type of psychology Kim Jong-un has. You know, he could have pushed the button right there just out of his own ego. I mean, you just don't know. And I know Trump goes by his gut. He thinks his gut is all intuitive and omniscient, but I don't believe that. I don't think it is. There's people who think he's crazy like a fox and crazy like crazy. I'm in the camp of crazy like crazy, because that's even better than crazy like a fox, because if he's crazy like a fox, he's using his base, you know, with this rhetoric about the wall and all the anti-immigration, the xenophobia and everything, not really feeling that way personally. He's just manipulating them, which would make him evil. So if he's crazy like a fox, he's an evil person. If he's crazy like crazy, he needs to be removed from office immediately. So it's kind of a no-win situation. And the therapists are saying that the Trump effect was originally defined as an increase in bullying in schools because of the rhetoric used by Donald Trump during the campaign. But this has spilled over into adults. You see films on YouTube about you know, people, mainly white males, going up to non-white people saying, go back to where you came from, speak English, you know, and they're really hostile. I have a friend of mine who's married to a Colombian wife, and she has noticed a huge spike in guys, you know, driving past her in pickup trucks saying the N-word and go back to where you came from and all that. The hate crimes have spiked 17%. I mean, these are real Trump effects that we need to look at from a mental health standpoint, because it's not good. This is affecting people, and his base are afflicted with something called schadenfreude, which it's the glee that one feels that another person's suffering. So people that voice these legitimate concerns are called snowflakes, and, you know, go back to your safe space and all that. No, these are legitimate concerns, because non-white grade school kids are being taunted with the word Trump. You know, they're going and telling them to go back where they came from, Trump, MFer. You know, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on right now as a result of this election. It's validated white supremacy. I don't really particularly think Trump is a white supremacist. He's using that faction of the population to fool them into thinking that they have an ally in the White House, and they've become very loud and very vocal, and this has a very deleterious effect on our society, I believe.
Okay, back to Mark.
I have come up with a few notes here. The first one that said the word New World Order was actually Hitler. Now, I've also seen it stated that our nuclear arsenal has been neutralized by the ETs, who don't trust it. And of course, we have seen incidents reported where a UFO will go over a military base, and the people at the switchboard of the nukes would say, "Oh, they're all turning on. They're all arming. Who's doing it?" And then they all turned off, and the UFO flies away. So that demonstrated to our military that they had the capability to fire it off against our will and control it. But now I heard that they've all been neutralized because they have the power. These nukes have the power to interfere with the adjacent dimension. So the beings that are in we'll call it the fourth dimension, if we're in the third, cannot have us able to demolish their realm. And of course, it was after there are first detonations when the UFOs started being seen after World War II, because apparently that is what awoke them to our mind state, our ability to demolish our own Earth, not realizing that we're demolishing our neighbors as well. Okay, I also like to point out when we were talking about artificial intelligence, it has also been theorized that from examining a reptilian that at an autopsy, that they were infected with thousands of nano AI particles which control them. And this has been referred to as what Satan is. The power behind this reptilian army is an over-control within all of their cells of AI. So there's a warning of what could be wrong with AI, where you're thinking, oh, why can't the world be run by a computer? Well, it takes away, the humanity of justice. Now, I also like to cover the point of Trump is using a classic Illuminati agenda, which you could find in the protocols of the Elders of Zion, of keep the population divided. So this is more proof of, what path he's following is the Illuminati path of, the positive, negative, whenever you go to a Freemason, I don't know what they call their places where they have their meetings, but the floors are black and white tiles, which is, their version of the what's that sign with the two tadpoles, which represent, young and old,
yin yang.
Peace and war. Yeah, the yin yang sign. That's what the black and white represents. Those are oppositions, right? Positive, negative.
Right.
So whether it's in this case, well, in the 50s, you'd see a young versus old, like, oh, I have an Elvis haircut, you have a Beatle haircut. Oh, let's start fighting over that, because it's a generation gap, and all these things are enjoyed by the overlords who want division. They want one black and one white. Well, Trump's continuing that with his policy of, racism, and he'll continue to do that because that's the goal and the agenda of the New World Order. Okay, I had something else here. Oh yeah. Now, despite his Trump's craziness that we've all witnessed, I still believe, knowing I live in Missouri, and I'm among many of the Trump tards, as I call them, but I still believe that, as Trump stated very early on in his campaign, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still not lose any supporters. And I still believe that's true because of 8 years of having I'll call him half-black president, enraged the neo-Confederates who really control this last vote. The neo-Nazis and the neo-Confederates, the neos, were enabled when they heard Trump's, speeches. And these people were primed after hating Obama, and they were encouraged by, the Fox, I call them Foxaganda, and even the Republicans, Mitch McConnell said, our goal is to veto everything that Obama wants and not to give him a second term. And let's get in here and erase the health care for all. and they try to make it look like Obamacare was something that he invented, and the right would they would hate it because the left invented it, except that it came from Mitt Romney's state of Massachusetts when it was Romneycare, and the Republicans had invented it.
Right.
I'll go ahead and pass the mic.
Can I say one thing?
Okay, Sasha. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. I'll defer to Sasha.
No. Go ahead. Before you forget, go ahead and say it.
Well, I know we're hitting on Trump quite a bit. He's not the only president that had questionable mental issues. There was a study done by Psychology Today back in 2016. It says half of all presidents suffered from mental illness, including depression, which was afflicted with Abraham Lincoln, bipolar disorder, Lyndon Johnson, alcoholism, Ulysses S. Grant, Alzheimer's disease, Ronald Reagan, and transient bouts of extreme present hedonism was noted in John F. Kennedy and Bill Clinton, not just Trump. So we're not picking on him. The big thing is, are you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I heard a bleep.
I did too. I don't know what it was.
The issue is that the mental health and decision-making skills of anybody that we elect is all important. And if Trump's done any good, is to bring that issue to the forefront, because we could really get into some trouble if we elected the wrong person. Hopefully we haven't already. But one thing that Mark said about the shutdowns, Robert Solis, back in 1965 with Maelstrom, and in his latest book, Unidentified, there was about a dozen events like that all over the planet, not just in the United States, where the Minuteman missiles were temporarily shut down for 10 minutes or so. And I agree with you, Mark, that was just it was just a demonstration that, we're keeping you in check. We're here. We have the capability of doing this. But I think the positive ETs from the positive higher densities have something akin to the Prime Directive in Star Trek. They're looking for volunteers, people who actively seek them. They're not one to just appear and impose their will on a planet. People say, why don't they just show up and save us? Well, that's not how they operate. Even their ships, if you look into the friendship groups back in 1956 in Italy to 1967, their ships, which have been photographed and videotaped and authenticated in optical labs, were invested with something called Eureta, which means they would destroy themselves rather than harm anything on Earth. They're concerned about incurring karma when they interact in this realm, and they strictly seek volunteers. So when we talk about disclosure, I think there's a critical mass of collective awareness, of collective seeking and permission granted to the higher density positive ETs out there who are looking for us to, on our own free will, invite them here. So I would like to see some kind of globally interconnected meditation group or something to say, hey, we're here. We acknowledge your presence. We would like for you to, interact with us, because I think until they get some type of collective signal from that critical mass of human souls on this planet, it ain't going to happen. And we're at the whim of what the friendship group called the CTRs. They called them the contraries or the weros, and they described them as an artificial race who worships technology that we're currently being invaded by. And then if you bring in the raw material, the Law of One, they identify it as a group from Orion, likely both reptilian and gray, that come in through various natural portals. Allegedly, according to the raw material, there's a quarantine that was placed on our solar system, but the Orion Crusaders, as the raw material calls it, come in through natural portals and take advantage of that. But I also think you're right, Mark, about the first time we dropped an atom bomb in 1945. It was like putting an M80 firecracker in a book made out of onion skin paper. The explosion itself adversely affected adjacent dimensions, and we've always known that there's a paraphysical race here on Earth that we coexist with. We call them the ultra-terrestrials, the elementals, or whatever you want to call them. They're normally invisible energy beings who can appear in our visual spectrum if they so choose or if they need to. And one of the things that the raw material brought up that I particularly liked was that some of the flying saucer sightings that people are seeing are, I noticed at one of the conventions I went to, a guy had from Turkey, Haktan Aktagan, or I can't pronounce his name correctly, but some of the alleged craft that were in there, they just look like molten pieces of metal, and the doesn't look like anybody was inside them or anything. They look like apports that you would see in a seance or something, only larger. And the raw material stated that these were sometimes just thought forms sent here to wake up the wanderers, and it goes into, you know, a certain percentage of the human population are not indigenous to Earth. They're from other realms that have chosen to incarnate here for reasons of helping this critical mass of collective consciousness to reach a certain point. So that's what I'm about. It's like, I really want to see this planet achieve a collective consciousness that's a good enough grade and a positive, loving enough vibratory frequency, for lack of a better way of putting it, to where we can collectively invite the positive ETs from the higher dimensions to interact with us and maybe put to rest some of the plans that the CTRs or the Weros have for us. Alana Freeland has done a lot of research on the space fence lockdown and the fact that there's already the atmosphere is being converted to a superconductor with aluminum and barium and nanites in there, and we've already got those in our systems. And I feel like if I don't do my proper soul work while I'm here, I'm 63, almost 64, let's say I have another 8-10 years on this planet. If I don't do the appropriate back here and incarnate to 3D, it'll probably be under an alien AI system.
Hold that thought. That's a good place to end. We'll be back in 5 minutes after this break.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. Why am I here? You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here. You haven't answered my question. The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation. Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassonde.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Collision Course is back. Schedule B on Revolution Radio every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You get outer space. You get honest answers, real researchers, truthful answers, and a place to engage with questions. Take part in the discussion. Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com hosts Collision Course every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Jan Kara Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alec Lessin, and our producer is Thomas Becker. And today we have guests Russell Brinegar and Mark Micloskey, and we're doing a roundtable discussion around the dangerous case of Donald Trump, a new book about an analysis by 27 or something different psychologists and mental health experts. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation today. And we do greatly appreciate your donation because it allows us to bring shows like this and many others here on Revolution Radio. And Thomas Becker, Mad Painter, are we doing better now than we were the other day? This fundraising?
We haven't received a donation since Friday. We're still at $168, and we need $2,450.
Come on, guys and gals. Go over and donate. Yeah, any specials going on that might be an incentive for people?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, just donate. We need your money. Okay. Before we go back to Sasha, who's next in our round table, Russell, do you have anything to finish up? We kind of cut you off mid-sentence.
Well, I was just talking about, we were talking about the New World Order and how there's a difference in perception between people who lean left versus people who lean right. The ones who lean right, I have a lot of friends and family that lean right, they're afraid to death of global socialism. And the ones who lean left are more concerned about our military presence around the world and denuclearizing the world because that's a threat to all life on the planet. And get rid of some of the malfeasance that exists in the military. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert David Steele, but he made an interesting, pretty bold statement on Kerry Cassidy's Camelot Project where he said these military bases are not there for national defense. They're there to traffic cash, gold, drugs, and small children. So if anything like that's going on, then we just need to clean up our own house. And I would just like to see a compassionate leader that embraces the LGBT community, let gay men and women go ahead and get married, no sexual discrimination in the workplace, women can become president. Everybody has a shot at success in life, and no one is discriminated against. And when I first heard of the Muslim ban and the wall going up and all that, it just, for me personally, it was taking the country back about 50 years. I mean, we already went through the civil rights era, and different populations that were traditionally discriminated against won their rights and their freedom, and I just don't want to see us to lose that. But there does seem to be an alliance amongst humans here with either the positive friendship group extraterrestrials or the Orion Crusaders, the reptilian/gray that want to make this a seized planet. I think from what I've read, that's pretty much what they do is they develop the technology, they feed technology into the top predator on a planet and create all kinds of wars and stuff so that they have to expedite technology. You're always looking for a better weapon to kill your neighbors with. And then when we achieve this thing called the technological singularity, an alien singleton can be established here where global body and mind control down to the DNA level can be implemented. And that's the new world order that we really need to be concerned about is the alien version of it, the negative alien version of it. So there are humans here who are working on a 5D negative ascension. I would imagine there's beings out there in the multiverse that are like Pinhead from Hellraiser that just really enjoy other people's suffering. That's just the path that they went down, and it only gets worse as you get up into the higher densities. So 3D is like a school from my perspective where we're here to make a choice on which higher density allegiance that we want. And I would like to think that I've chosen the positive friendship groups and ally myself with the Akri, is I believe the way they pronounce their name. It's AKRIG, the Akridge or the Akri. And they certainly gave really good advice to the 100-plus Italian contactees from 1956 to 1967. So I draw from that information quite a bit.
Okay. Sasha, your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like the information from the Amici, the Italians. But I took notes. I want to start back with Mark's remarks, and I think you're so right on about how the U.S. has the coalition that's controlling the United States, U.S. during the time of U.S. Grant was the only time that the black people even had a decent chance to vote and be educated. And the brave young people that came down to try to assist the black people's freedom were called carpetbaggers, and the ones that helped in the South were called scallywags. And the South rose up, and President Johnson was a Southerner. He hated black people. He was terrible, and Grant was just trying to bide his time till he could get back. He was the only during his presidency did black people have a chance. And as soon as, we didn't have the military presence, the North Carolinians and the other Southerners kept on fighting their war, and they still hate black people, and they still keep them from voting. And then they are indeed allied with the Nazis. Allen Dulles, who ran the CIA and took over the Nazi leadership and all the monsters and machine makers of terrible weapons and so forth, and integrated them into the U.S. economy at the very top of the military-industrial complex and the military and so forth, so that there's this Nazi that have been running the United States and in alliance with some of the Greys. But, so that's the sort of who we see. And, of course, the mafia has always been a major player in the United States, and so that's all part of that. And one of the things that I look at also is whatever is whatever is out there in our life now, in this life, in this dimension. I go by the principle that it's a decent hypothesis that as below, so above, and certainly so within. So on this planet, we have most of the people, when they know each other, when they look in each other's eyes, when they feel each other's hearts, feel oneness. The natural feeling of people for each other is love. And so that's in every one of us. The universe is a whole, and there's fractals of every part of it, and every molecule, including every being. And so that, yes, we have to look at our own inner trumps, the part of us that are so driven by pride that we're no longer humble. And what we do with every subpersonality, both within ourselves and on the planet, is say, what do you really need? Okay, so you have a prideful subpersonality. What does it really need? I need attention. I need affection. Or whatever it is. Once you start dealing with what people need, then we can. That's the common ground. The love that we all feel, not just humans, but everything and everyone. And so that's kind of how I look at it. The other thing, as far as what Russell was saying, okay. Let me just see what I got here. I can't. Oh yeah. It's the thing you said about the Clintons. Did you say that you were quoting an author who said that Hillary and Bill Clinton were going to this place to have sex with kids? Did I hear you right?
That was Mark.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that was Orgy Island.
Well,
by Jeffrey Epstein.
They all do that. Everybody who becomes any kind of major political figure on this whole planet, they go to the equivalent of Orgy Island. They're all involved in sex rituals where they kill babies. But this is not just limited to the Earth. This is a galactic situation. It's not just child trafficking. It's human trafficking. And they take people of all ages, human beings, and they use them for military slaves, sex slaves, work slaves, and some of them end up as meat for other extraterrestrials. So, the focus on child trafficking, it's just, this is a slave planet. According to a lot of the, I want to call it the secret space witnesses. That's a new term because I guess secret space program is owned by Corey Good or something. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, the international corporate conglomeration, which is supposed to be the 300 corporate families of America that control everything, and they may be controlled by somebody higher. The Archons, they call the Archons the interdimensional people that are taking over AI. I didn't want to steal your. Were you finished, Sasha, or go finish yours and then pass it to me? I've got some notes as well. See if they make sense as far down the line. But go ahead.
Drew, I already know what I know. I want to learn what you people know.
Okay. Well, we don't know. We don't know anything, but we know it all. I don't know. It's something we have to figure this out. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to address the the basic human rights of people. I like Alex Collier's. How can you charge? Andromeda said, how can you charge people to be born on a planet they didn't ask to be born on? So that brings up all kind of questions. Did we agree to come here? Is this some kind of virtual reality where we have the polarities and the light and the dark and the good and the evil, and these things are acting out, and at the highest level, the ones that get to play the villains have the most fun, because they get to be evil and sadistic. And is there 5D negative, what you call it, ascension? I don't know about ascension. Is there the negative polarity that's pulling us down that way, and is there the positive, which is the original ascension meaning? What is the singularity? I think that the Earth singularity, I think that what I heard from Nassim Haramein is everything has a singularity in it. Any collection of consciousness has a singularity. So there's an Earth singularity, which is our AI, our computer, which is the sum total of humanity's experiences. And Robert Heinlein explored that in the 1973 book called Time Enough for Love. And the singularity of the Earth back then was called Minerva, and Minerva interacted with a man called Lazarus Long, who had somehow been a genetic mutation, and he lived to be 3,000 years old. So he was quite wise, having 3,000 years of living in one original form and not going through the death, life, rebirth, reincarnation cycle, but in one form. And it seemed that the sum total of humanity's consciousness ended up, even though everything's fed into it, with this wisdom and wanting to love, wanting to experience human love, much like Pinocchio and Data, right? So, I don't know, maybe there is a negative singularity, but maybe that's what they're talking about, the Earth splits into different timelines. And what I got from my personal experience when I was on board a Vimana-type mothership in 1958, when I was there, I was my eternal self. I was aware of my existence in the eternal awareness of all the lifetimes I had lived, and I was shown 24 potential timelines for this realm here, this solar system, this Earth, where we go, and there were 12 dark and 12 light, and they asked me to choose, and I chose not the one that was completely utopia, and not the one that was the next one to it, but the third one down, because we needed enough to do to make it interesting. So I guess at one point, Russell, you were talking about how all this stuff, this technology, technological singularity, there's some kind of, we have to have technology, to evolve and go, to the next level. But then there's these dark forces that want to use it for kill. But I think if you look at the Michael Newton Institute book on Life Between Lives, and they have a lot of life reviews, there were some that killed, and they actually got over it. It's like, okay, I killed in every way possible. Or the people who died, they were victims. Man, I fell off the Twin Towers holding my beloved's hand. Wow, what a trip, I think there's a point where we're going to maximize this and we all get conscious. That's what I'm hoping. So I'd like to take the last part of this show and let's see if we can bring it around to maybe some solutions, some ideas. What do we do about this situation, the dangerous case of Donald Trump and all the Donald Trumps, all the people that just get so full of themselves. They think they're more important than anybody else, and that their gut is so wise that it's wise enough for the whole freaking planet. What do we do with people like that? And what are some solutions for society to create a conscious, kind, and loving society where people can maximize their experience and perhaps experience some joy and bliss? So we're going back to Russell.
Okay. Well,
we're going to eat up the clock, but let's go around again.
It happens on an individual basis, and each person should apply the doctrines of the oneness doctrine of watching your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions to be in the eventual best interest of all parties concerned, and just work on elevating your own personal vibration. And if enough people do that, then those are the ascenders that want to go into the positive 5D or whatever you want to call it. There was an early AI researcher named Ed Fredkin who thought the universe was a computer that somebody was trying to solve a problem with. He didn't know what the problem was with it. But then physicist James Gates come along and said that there's actual computer code. Not only is there computer code in the mathematics that describe the universe, it's a particular type of computer code discovered by Claude Shannon in the 1940s. So we're probably looking at something similar to Nick Bostrom's simulation hypothesis. He thinks that we're operating ancestor simulations from the future. That seems like a strange idea, but it actually correlates with a lot of things. For example, the raw material says that each one of us has a 6th density higher self that exists in what we would call the distant future. And then channelers like Bashar have admitted that they may be channeling an aspect of themselves that exists in the distant future. So if you look at the idea that the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously, that all points in time and space throughout the multiverse are accessible to any of us, and we traverse it sort of like Google using our mind and our psyche. We're all sort of like Doctor Who. But I'd like to go over what the DSM-5 points out. There's 8 specific characteristics for sociopathy, which are pretty relevant. I'll just go over them real quick. One is failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors. 2 is deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying, or conning others for personal profit or pleasure. You only have to have 3 of the 8 to qualify for a diagnosis of sociopathy. 3 is impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. 4 is irritability or aggressiveness, as indicated by repeated physical or verbal fights or assaults. 5 is reckless disregard for the safety of self or others. 6 is consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or honor financial obligations. 7 is lack of... You know anybody? Does this remind you of anybody? Lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another, and evidence of conduct disorder like impulsive or aggressive or callous or deceitful behavior that persists beyond age 15. Now, we all know people that have these characteristics, but none of them are present. You know, it's like if I had a golf buddy that had all 8 of these, I wouldn't care. You know, I'd have a beer with him and hit the 18 holes. But when you go into a world leadership, I think your mental health status is very important, and that's the only point that I would like to make. And other than the fact that, somebody is monitoring our nuclear capability. I don't know if the global nukes are completely defused or not. I wouldn't have any way of knowing that. But you can discern through the literature that's available in the public domain through Robert Salas' works and others that we've been visited by glowing orbs that of unknown origin that shut down our nuclear capability just to show us that they could do that or that they were there. So it is a strange thing to think that there's 5 or 6 or 7D negative beings. But Dr. Michael Salla talked about a guy that showed up. He went by the handle Hidden Hand on Above Top Secret for a long time. And he portrayed himself as one of the families that were here to try to achieve a negative harvest. And they, like, to get a positive harvest, you only have to be 50% or more good. But to get a negative harvest, they need to be 95% selfish and bad. And that would actually be hard to do. I'd really have to work at it, to get myself to that point. But yeah, beyond 3D, where the dualism exists and we're here to make a choice, the 4D, allegedly, according to the raw materials, where group souls are accumulated, and it's the last density where people care at all about any type of physical conflict. When you get into the 5 or 6D, it's only by proxy. They have one interesting thing in the friendship group where they had underground bases near the Adriatic Sea in Italy, and they would actually allow the CTRs, or the negative ETs from Orion, to cohabitate with them in their building. So that just shows you how benign they actually are. They don't have any interest in conflict at that point. And the Eureka that their ships were invested in really smacks highly of Eliezer Yudkowsky's CEV, or Coherent Extrapolated Volition, where we don't want an artificial superintelligence, especially if it's going to run the planet as a planetary sovereign, like Bostrom says that artificial AI would want to do, is just take over things. We don't want it operating from our moral structure. So it's very important, as 56 companies are working towards artificial general intelligence, which is human level AI, that the cognitive architecture that goes into that, we take great care to build it right, because we're only going to get one chance at it. And unfortunately, DARPA is one of the 56 companies that's working on artificial general intelligence right now. And if they achieve AGI first, Bostrom says it'll be either between 2 hours and 18 months before an AGI turns itself into ASI, or artificial superintelligence. And it said that might be a democracy, a group of AIs that make decisions, or what he called a planetary singleton. In other words, you've got an artificial intelligence that thinks it should run the world. And I think in our lifetime, we'll probably see an electronically augmented human being take a stab at taking over the world. That's just a suspicion that I have, no basis in fact. But Sasha, what do you think?
Sasha? That's interesting. Unmute. Come on, unmute. Are you unmuted?
You're unmuted. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
We can hear
you.
Okay. Well, one thing that I do think of, you initially started this section by what could we do to ameliorate our anxieties? And for me, in anthropology, following Max Weber, we say that the basic human sanction is nullity. Stop participating in institutions, and they're not there. In Polynesia, which I studied extensively, a chief was a redistributive center of his community. People brought part of their first fruits from the sea or from the mountains or from the land, and they put it piles before the chief, and the chief redistributed it and the land to raise things in the boats to other people. And if he didn't distribute fairly, he wasn't a chief anymore, because people would go away. And that's the point. Stop participating. And what I suggest is, because we're going to go into another governmental shutdown, and that means there's no air traffic controllers. That means you can't go anywhere. That means people are going to be starving. We've got to do something, and what I suggest is a general strike, like our French compatriots have shown us. And that doesn't mean violence. Violence is utterly stupid. Just stop participating in these junk institutions. That's my suggestion. Sasha out.
Okay.
Mark, are you still there?
Turn. Yeah, he's there.
Yes, I'm here, and I appreciate Sasha's passion. I also could add a tax strike. Hit him in the pocketbook with a tax strike.
Now, wait a minute. I got Social Security coming.
You're not going to get it.
There is a lot of merit to personal mental hygiene. I got that term from a friend of mine, William Cherney, who wrote the Zeta Primer that's available on Lulu for the cost of printing. He worked with a spirit medium named Paul Hamden, who communicated with the Zeta race, and they have a lot of interesting material in there. And one of the things that they mentioned, that there's 153 quantum synthetic environments 400 miles outside Earth's atmosphere, and some on the surface of Earth and some underneath the Earth, where this jump room technology was allegedly handed to humans by the Zetas, and it has the ability to extract human consciousness into a time compression experience, where one of your other guests was talking about where he went out for 100,000 years and then he came back and no time had elapsed here. That's a very common experience among contactees, going back to William Denton in the 1800s, where he took a trip out into the solar system and all that. Time compression experiences are very common. They happen all the time. Sometimes our memories are blocked. But the bottom line is we are perpetually interacting with other intelligences throughout the multiverse, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, whatnot. It's just that, like Aldous Huxley said, our brain acts like a governor or a filter to filter it all out. And sometimes it's not in our best interest to remember those experiences. But time compression experiences where your consciousness is extracted from your body and you go out into a VR experience that's just as real as what we think we're in right now. And then no time at all has passed here. Your body didn't go anywhere. So there's really a number of bizarre things, going on the planet. Some are paranormal and esoteric and occulted, and others are just common sense. Like I just bought a kuchen, of all things. It's a Chinese instrument that has been used for thousands of years for meditation. And I found out in order to learn to play it, I'm going to have to learn some Chinese because all the music books for a kuchen are in Chinese. So I got to learn what the little symbols mean. But personal mental hygiene, keeping yourself out of the fray. There's an old saying that, if you find yourself arguing with idiots, an outside observer can't tell the difference between the two, and that's something that I have to work on is just don't get triggered into these dumb conversations online, And I've done really good. Like I keep my personal wall and stuff kind of free from the political or religious stuff now, but I get triggered by other people's stuff that they post, and I'll get drug into conversations and I always wind up regretting it. And it's like I do meditations on how to please just keep my thumb from acting like it's demon possessed or something. So, everybody's got their own issues and their own personal stuff that they need to work on. But in the short time that I have left in 3D, I'm just trying to help my higher self out that I met on August 18th of 2009. It was a magnificent version of myself that had no evil in it. And I was very inspired by that version of myself, the encounter that I had. And there hadn't been a day gone by since 2009 that I haven't thought of how I can be of service to my higher self and how I can be a better human being today than I was yesterday.
Okay. Mark.
Well, I have enjoyed everyone's contribution so far. I'd like to say that there is one way that I've discovered to put an end to all the negativity on this planet, and it's quite revolutionary, and that is to not sign your soul contract between lives and accept that you owe bad karma and have to go back in some suffering condition, such as, poverty or, like you were being an abused child. And, oh, yes, I accept that lifetime that you're being tricked when they show you your life review and tell you, oh, well, this is, mistakes that you need to have corrected in the next life, and you owe us bad karma, this and that. But that's a hoax, because the same people offering you this hoax new life that will be suffering are the same ones that feed off of negativity. And the more people that accept that and get down here on this planet again, recycled into another negative experience, are our neighbors, which are being, physically abused and hateful and suffering and angry and turning on foxaganda and, hating their neighbors and, dividing among themselves instead of uniting. I heard a call for oneness tonight, but that is not the agenda of the over-controllers of this planet. That lovely ideal will not be met as long as we keep agreeing between lives to come down here, sign a soul contract to suffer, and continue the cycle of negativity. One thing I wanted to add, Russell mentioned something about your higher self existing, and I would offer that it existed outside of time and not in the future.
Right, it's what we call the future, but you're right, it's uncoupled from local space-time. And that was definitely the feeling that I got when I encountered that version of myself, is that time is meaningless on the other side of the veil.
Right. And in the eternity, yes.
Yeah, and see, that's one thing that's puzzled me for 9 years now since this happened to me, is like, okay, if I had said yes, instead of deciding to stay here and take myself to the hospital and save myself and get stents in, if I would have said yes to going to the other side of the veil, okay, I've come to understand this as a condition of superposition, just like they do subatomic particles in quantum computers, that this physical life that I'm living is in superposition with another version of myself that has an expanded state of potentiality, just like an electron is both a wave and a particle, and the wave exists in all potentiality, and then when you observe or measure it, it becomes the electron in a particular place. That's kind of like how our lives are for the 70 or 80 years or whatever, 100, 150 if you're lucky, to be here. But then when your body dies, you abandon the state of superposition with your higher self, which is uncoupled from local space-time, and then you go from there. So we're all like Doctor Who, we're bouncing in and out of superposition with our higher selves, and eventually with the cosmic supermind, which is an eternal infinite probability field, according to all the theoretical physicists. From what you were saying, Mark, it sounded like you may have read the Wes Penry papers or listened to John Lear, because both of those individuals talk about that the tunnel's a trap and you don't have to come back here. And the feeling that I got from meeting my transcended self in 2009 was that he knows a lot more than I do. And it's like when the governor of my brain, the limitations are done, and I'm kind of sick of my own personality, to tell you the truth. I'll be glad when this one's over with. And re-emerge back into my higher self. The question that's on my mind is, okay, when you're in that state, uncoupled from local space-time, time has no meaning, and you're in the void, you're in the matrix or whatever like that, do you then get another assignment from your higher self to go into a 5D life and live that out as part of the component that it needs to eventually re-merge back into the cosmic supermind? I don't know. Those are answers that, had I crossed the veil, I would have for people. But I just approached it and got close enough to where I decided I wanted to live here a little bit longer. So I just got a snapshot, and I wish I had, more of those types of answers. Mark?
I'd like to add that one abductee was given a telepathic message when they asked, "What is Earth?" And the answer came back from the ET, "It is a school," which I've heard you mention earlier tonight. And I've also seen written somewhere that the reason beings from other dimensions are attracted to come here is because of the potential that a physical body has, and that is to touch, to feel the warmth of the sun, to have sex, to eat food, all these things you cannot do with the body. Right. So that's the allure. Like if you think, a religious person would call it being in heaven. I don't know if they imagine that they bring their body with them, but it's cold and we'll call it mathematical existence, and it's not the warmth of humanity which we experience here.
Right. The energetic beings, like Dorothy Isaac had communication with, where she would get the feeling that they were there, and she'd go outside and catch them on her Super 8 movie camera. There's a nice DVD called Capturing the Light that shows the story of Dorothy Isaac, and there are people like that, like Antonio Urzi and Woodrow Derenberger, and there's a lot of people that can sense the presence of these energetic invisible beings, the parahumans that coexist with us here on our planet, and they only see auras. Like you said, they're not in the physical world, so the reason that psychic people or people who can see into the ultraviolet or the infrared a little bit more than normal is that these parahumans or energetic entities are attracted to auras. And if they choose to physically manifest in a being or a craft or something, they can pretty much assume any form that they want to serve their purposes.
Yeah, I've had craft come and talk to me, and they said they're sentient. Yeah. So it's like, we can come in any form we want to. I just wanted to add, you said Earth is a school, but, it is. We learn a lot here. There's a book called The Gaia Project, The Earth's Great Changes by Hui Yang Zhang, I think it is. Yeah, Zhang. And it basically, what the book, this was a download download he got when he was told he was dying, and he didn't have long to live. So he went out he's Korea. He went somewhere into the jungles of the forest, and he just meditated to the point where this download came. So basically what he says is that we are in this skin-encapsulated self-sense form, which is in the deepest level of physicality, so we can feel self and apparent other. We can feel separate, because our natural state is loving oneness, and we naturally are we're so permeable, we merge into each other, we feel each other, we know each other's thoughts. As a contact, the experiencer, my experience with other beings is they know what I'm thinking before I'm going to say it, and I pick up what they're thinking. And the more that I interact with extraterrestrials, the more I realize that most of the species are telepathic, that the human species is an anomaly, but that's because this Gaia Project experiment, this is a great experiment, in order to feel separate so we can actually love and hate each other. We don't know how to hate on the level where we're one. That we are simultaneously existing in many levels of physicality and vibratory frequencies and dimensions and whatever you want to call it, timelines. We're everywhere. That we focus our attention to this, moment. We're in this moment. This moment is all we have, but we have all moments at the same time. So we are the polarity, the continuum. And so the end result of the Gaia Project is that we will create like a virus once this experiment is over. And the Gaia book thought it was 2012, but it's, maybe we're on a different timeline, who knows. But once it's over, then we will project this virus of loving oneness and universal consciousness and evolving into higher levels out to the universe to accelerate away from this continuous level of wars within the third dimensional physicality. So apparently there's a, galactic wars going on pretty much, and there's other species that are outside of this continuum and go, what? What's going on? Why are people always fighting all the time? And it's many beings. So it kind of made sense. I just looked at that. Let's see. One of the timelines that I was examining recently, I've been watching a lot of Apex TV, which has the time travelers and some Al Bielek things. And he said, and I forget if he said it, but there was a timeline where AI came in and took over the world, and the Earth was kind of unstable, so they had these giant cities that were like 22 miles high, but they had they had a system so they wouldn't collapse in itself. And so AI was governing the whole thing. And they let it go for, I don't know what it was, 100 years or 500 years or 1,000 years. This AI was running the planet. But what happened was everything was so controlled and such a narrow parameter, right? We didn't have the polarity dichotomy expressed out to its max, so a 3D form could express itself in light and dark, good and evil. So it kind of got boring. And so AI, everybody agreed after, I don't know what it was, let's just say 500 years, they said, okay, let's drop this type of governance because we're stagnant. We're not going anywhere. Nobody's evolving, or, nobody's devolving. It's boring. So they switched to another system. And then there's other future, time travelers that come back with, yeah, we had that for a while, but we let that go. But if you did something wrong, the AI said, well, you want to leave? There's down there on the Earth there, there's still people living down there. It's kind of wild. Or you can stay up here. We have the civilization and all the technology. So anyway, that was very interesting. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that we're already one that to get outside of victim, right? Don't sign the soul contract. Yeah. You don't have to do that. And I've done a lot of work myself, recovered past memories, and it's like I came down in my, I call it the Christ consciousness, awareness, higher source self. But it's kind of weird because you're not really fully engaged in this game. So you're kind of, when you come down on that level, you're looking at people like, wow, this is really weird. Because I remember when I was a kid and I was looking at religion, It's like, yeah, I call it the stranger in a strange world phenomenon. So, but it's outside of the, I'm going to come down here and be a victim and have all this crap. And so once you own it, it starts to dissipate and you evolve past it. Okay, I'm going to let Sasha talk. It's his turn, and we're coming up in the last 15 minutes. Go ahead, Sasha, your turn.
Okay, yeah, Mark, I do understand what you're saying, and it's very much like my Basque teacher, who's also a professor at JFK. Her name's Angie Arian. It says basically that everything is perfect, and it's couldn't be any other way, and the reason you know it couldn't be any other way because that's how it is. And so once you start with that kind of a thing, you're not going to say, oh, mea culpa, when you get to the interlife and say, send me back to suffer some more. You say, no, baby, it was perfect. It was groovy. I'm ready. I'm doing the next thing. And how do you do the next thing? What's my recommendation? Again, it comes from Angie Arian. Show up, pay attention to what has heart and what has meaning. State your what you have to state without blame or judgment, and be open to but not attached to outcome. It's not that difficult. Signing out.
Okay, so let's just go free flow here. Just
okay. Well, the late great philosopher Iztek Bentov drew a V, and the way he looked at it was that as you get up into the higher planes or the higher dimensions, the more oneness you experience. And this is the realm of separateness, where we have the illusion that we're little individuals. And a lot of us are, I think they call it solipsism, where everyone else is just a prop, that you're the only person that's real. And there's people that get this idea in their head that they're the only person that matters and the only person that lives. Everyone else is robots or something. But when you get up into, 4D, 5D, or whatever you want to call it, more oneness exists. And 4D, allegedly, group souls start forming. And I got really excited about that the other day, about souls of similar resonance forming into one mind, a group mind, and travel in an energetic body without the constraints of bodily needs throughout the multiverse for a more macro view of the universe. I just like to spend about 1 million years just, exploring the universe like Captain Kirk on Star Trek. I want to find out what's out there, and just different civilizations and how they developed and how they evolved and who intervened. And it'd be nice to have that information. And I don't know what kind of a level or what kind of a plane you would have to make it to have that type of macro view, but it sure would be interesting, I think.
Well, I read something about that quite recently. And it's a continuation of what I was saying last time about not accepting the memory wipe and coming back here and accepting a negative circumstance to cause more chaos on the planet here. And the alternate was that you can reunite with what they call source, which you might call God or something. But at that point, when you're not on this planet or not on the if the moon contains the soul a trap, or the tunnel in between the two, if you can escape that, and then when you reunite with source, apparently you have the ability to choose your next incarnation more freely, without these beings of light being your controllers and sitting you down in a classroom and showing you the films of, this is where you messed up here. So that seems to me to be the natural choice that you would have. Now, I want to point out one more thing. While we're discussing how we act on this planet, of course, we see how we are all negative toward each other. And I just want to point out that because Robert Lazar informed us. He's a whistleblower, of course, a famous whistleblower from Area 51. He informs us that these certain aliens come here every 10,000 years to readjust or to adjust, one or the other, our DNA. So how can I blame humanity's behavior on the species and when we are being over-controlled with their scalpels on our DNA?
It's a good question.
Good question.
It wouldn't surprise me if that were true, because if you look back in all the evolutionary history, especially between Australopithecine and Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, that would take much longer periods of time to go from a 4-foot monkey-like creature with a brain the size of an orange that basically served the function of cat food into a larger creature with a bigger brain that just had one little piece of technology for almost 2 million years. That was an indigenous human that may have been brought here from somewhere else or tweaked from Australopithecine. But however Homo erectus arrived here, it must have been pretty cooperative with one another, because if in 2 years for not to ever develop any further technology, it means one of two things. They weren't smart enough to do that, or they didn't need to because there wasn't any competition and they cooperated with each other and loved each other, and there wasn't any need to always be looking for that next new weapon, so you can kill your neighbor more effectively, like Homo sapiens sapiens has done, from about 40,000 on. There's also a whole new angle to this thing, that prior to the Younger Dryas impact event of 12,920 years ago, there appears to be a globally interconnected megalithic civilization that had aerial capability. And if they knew that disaster was coming and went underground or undersea, they may want us to advance technologically so that they can recapture their former glory. Jim Mars said something about that in Our Occulted History, where are they looking to recreate their super science? And that's a possibility, too, that there may be a population here that once had post-singularity civilization, and they got thrown back to the Stone Age by a cataclysm of some sort, and there were survivors that went around. I think they call them the Apkallu sages, that taught the more primitive humanity the elements of civilization. And so there may be an occulted population on Earth as we speak that's looking to get back into their former status.
Yeah. Sasha, you had a wonderful conversation. Go ahead.
What the Sumerians, or what the particular Sumerian called Enki wrote about Homo erectus, and his extensive notes on them is that that this was not a stupid creature at all, that he communicated telepathically, that he was going around to the traps that Enki and Nimai had set for other animals they wanted to study, and letting the animals out of the traps, and they were compassionate, and Enki and his son Thoth had a lot of fun with the Homo erectus, the ancestor of Bigfoot that's still with us. They tried all kinds of things to see if they could get him pregnant, and they finally wound up doing it in a test tube and so forth. But Homo erectus was not a stupid creature. I agree with you, Russ. This was they were cooperative and intuitive, and they didn't need a bunch of technology. And look what the technology is doing for us. It's doing some harm as well as some good.
Yeah, I think that would be great to have low tech and high spirituality, and walk the earth barefoot and naked, eating fruit and stuff. I mean, that'd be a wonderful existence if you lived in really loving cooperative clans and there wasn't any need to progress technologically. Maybe they had a memory of, I've been there, done that, and don't want to go that route again. And we've definitely my work well enough to know I think we're being manipulated into this technological singularity real quick. And it's way premature to our sociological evolution. And it's a real volatile situation. That's why the saucers have to show up and shut down our nukes once in a while, because we are like monkeys with matches, and we could easily destroy ourselves. So when I hear somebody talking about a new nuclear arms race or withdrawing from nuclear treaties, yeah, it makes me nervous. And if I'm a snowflake because of that, so be it.
I'd like to add one thing.
Go ahead. Running out of time. You can end up take out the clock. We're going to be out in 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned Russell did an underground civilization.
Yes.
Well, there's supposed to be a civilization that's living there of native reptilians who evolved from the dinosaurs and were driven underground by the ET reptilians.
Yeah, the Chitauri, yeah.
And when we see the cigar-shaped craft, those belong to the natives.
Yep.
And I also wanted to point it out, the primitive section of our brainstem is the reptilian brain.
Right. The amygdala and the limbic system.
Right, with the mammalian brain on top of that for the higher functions. So I just have to wonder how advanced these reptilians are without their computers when they're operating on that brainstem, compared to us. So it seems to me when we're being manipulated, we're being dumbed down to their level. And another thing we have that they're looking for is our emotions. I believe they're jealous of our emotions, and they study them, and they wonder how they work. What they're for.
Well, that's the end of this episode. We'll have to do this another time. I'll get back to you when we're be on again. Much love and blessings. And aloha. Say aloha, everybody.
Aloha.
Bye.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.